All over the world, archivists have a unique responsibility to preserve history for future generations. And when we're talking about modern archives, we're of course also talking about digital archives. What challenges do these archivists face regarding these digital archives in particular? Well, that's a question I'm going to pose to Neil Jeffries from the Open Preservation Foundation. And this foundation has developed and launched a free online tool for particularly smaller archivists who don't have the resources to use sophisticated software. Welcome, Neil Jeffries. What is CloudViPER?
Yes. CloudViPER is an online digital preservation environment. It can be used for teaching and testing, as well as actual digital preservation. It includes tools for file format identification and characterization, file validation, metadata extraction, and file format conversion.
What would you say are particular challenges for archivists when it comes to archiving digital assets?
I think there are two key ways in which digital preservation differs really from preservation of physical materials. Firstly, digital materials can't just be left on a shelf like a book can or like records can and expect to be usable many years later. Digital materials themselves degrade, and all technology suffers from obsolescence over time. So to that extent, digital materials need to be looked after continuously in order to ensure that they are accessible and usable in the future. But the other, I think, key aspect which we seek to address is that when you receive a digital file, you can't just by looking at the file determine whether or not it is in fact corrupted, formatted correctly, or what you expect it to be. Unlike a book, it's very easy to pick that up, flick through, and determine that it hasn't been damaged in any way very quickly. But for a file, you need additional tools in order to be able to check that it's okay. You could, of course, load every single file that you get into the right piece of software to view it, assuming you have all of those pieces of software to hand. But in practice, that's not really viable. So you need tools that actually allow you to process material at volume without enormous quantities of human intervention.
So this online CloudViPER tool helps archivists to identify their files and then to curate them accordingly.
That's right, to identify what it is and check that it is, in fact, what you expect it to be. So there's a little bit of verification that it is what you need it to be. And then also, yes, basically checking the integrity of that file. Has it been damaged either in the transmission to you or while it's been in storage, checking that it hasn't been damaged in some way or tampered with in some way over time as it sits in your digital shelves effectively.
Yes, and it runs, as you said, online, so you don't have to install anything locally. You can just use a browser to use the tool, right?
So yes, CloudViPER basically provides a way of running these tools in the cloud without having to install them on your local machines or do anything like that. So it makes these tools much more available to archivists for various uses.
You can use CloudViPER not only for digital archiving, but also for testing and even teaching. Can you elaborate a bit about that?
That's right. Really, we see CloudViPER used in several ways. One is, as you said, to actually allow you to load your files, send your files up into the cloud, check they are what they expect they are, and then to, if you're happy with that, then you can store them in whatever storage system you actually use locally and be sure they're okay. And then periodically you may want to get them out and check again that things are okay. So you can use it as part of your digital preservation workflow. But there are a number of other ways you could use it. Say you're an archivist and a new version of a tool's come out and you want to check that it still works the same way that the old one did without actually downloading it and installing it. You can always use CloudViPER, run up a latest version of that tool, check it does what you want to do so you can use it for testing. Say you've got new people joining your organization and you want to train them. You'd rather they didn't actually practice on your actual digital collection. So you can give them a set of sample files up in the cloud. They can play to their heart's content. They can make mistakes. They can learn how to use the tools without necessarily any risk of causing damage to your own local instances. So really there are a number of uses for it, partly for training, partly for testing, and then partly to allow you to do things which you may not be so convenient for you to do locally, especially if you're a small archive with limited resources, for example.
I mentioned before that CloudViPER is a particularly interesting option for archivists that work for smaller archives. Why is that exactly?
So smaller archivists don't necessarily have a lot of IT support in order to be able to run these tools locally. So being able to access them via a web browser, have them all pre-installed and pre-configured, should hopefully make it much easier to use a broader range of tools to do what you need to do. That is our hope, at least, is that by doing that, you also don't have to pay for the machine for any longer than you actually need to use that particular tool. So it's not like you need to buy a server or anything like that. You can just use it in the cloud for as long as you need to do the job that you need to do, and then you can shut it down and stop paying for it. So we do hope that it lowers the barrier for entry, certainly for smaller organizations, for doing that sort of thing.
Thank you, Neil Jeffries, the Open Preservation Foundation and the Dutch Digital Heritage Network for developing and offering this free tool for all digital archivers around the world. And dear viewer, if you want to make use of this offering, just go to the website of the Open Preservation Foundation and you can find all the information there and also how to become a member of this great network. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.